We are going to start here at 1 o'clock with the where and when. So creating and implementing OER, which will actually be a demonstration of a system called Pressbooks. The Online Consortium of Oklahoma, of which we currently have 25 members from the state system of higher education in Oklahoma, actually acquired a license to Pressbooks just this last month. We actually have 30 projects that are allocated to our committees to decide how we can work with faculty to best utilize this resource across the state. So if you like what you see on the screen today, I would encourage you to reach out to your campus's OER representative and ask about how you can get involved with some of these tools and potential projects to collaborate with other faculty across the state. So without further ado, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and introduce our next facilitators. We will be returning with Kathy Essmiller from Oklahoma State University, who I would say is our original Pressbooks guru for the state of Oklahoma, because OSU was really the trailblazer in acquiring this system first. We will also be joined by Jamie Holmes from Tulsa Community College, who is really going to take you through an in-depth experience of Pressbooks. And Jamie's institution is, again, one of the members of OCO, so TCC faculty, you will have the benefit of being able to potentially collaborate in this system. So Jamie and Kathy, go ahead and take it away. Thank you.
Hi, thank you all so much for rejoining us this afternoon. I hope you had a good break and a delightful lunch. I had Kraft macaroni and cheese and hot dogs. So a little different from conference fare, but very much one, I guess, helps me see life from the perspective of a college student. So anyway, there we are. I'd like to begin again by inviting you to consider 3 to 5 skills, tools, or talents that you have. Let me share my screen real quick. This isn't going to be a whole lot of screen sharing. Well, it will be, but it's not going to be presentation stuff. So, but as always, we're encouraging you, rather than coming in and trying to develop a whole new stable full of skills and strategies, to incorporate maybe one next step that you discovered today that fits something that you already love to do, or you already have identified as a strength. You're also welcome to learn a whole set of new things, and kudos to you if you have that energy. I'm very excited for you, and let me know. I'll send you a list of stuff that I need to, and give you the opportunity to help me out with that. So today's conversation this afternoon, we're going to visit a bit about where might be a good place to curate, modify, or create OER, and when might be a good time to pilot some of the practices that we have explored today. So I'm going to stop my screen share for a minute and tell you what we'd really like to see happen with today's conversation is just really y'all getting in and exploring some of these things, so that we can come back together and figure out how best to support each other and help each other. Jamie is we're both here. She has done a lot of content creation in Pressbooks. So we're going to give a quick overview of where you can find OER, but then we want to really turn you loose to explore some of the Pressbooks resources and experiment a little bit in the book itself. And if you hadn't yet requested an account, and I think someone requested after I sent them, and so I'll go back and I'll add you here in a bit once we start playing around in Pressbooks. But I do want you to, again, just relate these things to challenge you're facing that relates to your role, and think of one next step, just one next step that you can accomplish that might help get you closer to where you want to be in your practice. So OER can be created and modified in a variety of platforms. So I'm going to apologize a little bit because this is going to be a little clunkier than I would like, because I've got the tabs open, but I'm not super positive where they all are. So I might just Google. Okay, so the first one I want to show you though is OER Commons. And we're not going to spend a lot of time. This is mostly just to let you know that it exists. So I'll drop the link in the chat, and I'll take the screen back for a minute. I hope that doesn't make everybody seasick. I'm sure that's not great practice, but this is OER Commons, and it is a place that a lot of people use to create and share out their open educational resources. You'll find a lot of modules on here and a lot of lessons. It's great for searching for specific things, for specific subjects. You'll find more and more entire textbooks, but as in the first session, we talked about what does materials mean, and we discovered it meant a variety of things. You can find a lot of this here on OER Commons. They do have an authoring, I've lost the word. They have a way to author stuff on OER Commons. I have to be frank, the couple times I've gotten on there and played with it, it didn't feel as intuitive to me, but I do think it's also been through some modifications. And the fact that it's not intuitive to me doesn't really mean anything. You might get on there and find you actually love it. So OER Commons is one place. Another place.
Kathy, hold up. I'm going to interject and make sure everybody knows that we actually have an Oklahoma section of the OER Commons, and that's under the groups, I believe.
Okay. Oh, I have to log in, so let's play the.
You have to be logged in to see yours, and now I'm putting you on the spot to remember your username and password.
I have no idea what it is, but we'll share that with you all.
Actually, Marla just popped it in the chat. Yay.
Okay, great. Okay, so I'll click on that and we can all enjoy seeing it. Excellent.
Well, I just wanted to make sure everybody knew that they can join that group and be part of that.
Good. And this group, so there are, as you explore OER Commons, you'll find some fancy branded instances of it. I don't know if Ohio Link has one or not. Oklahoma, ours is more just a collaborative space that we've pitched in together, and we've agreed this is the table we're going to put our things on. So yeah, if you want to find this and put your stuff here, that is neat, because then as you're searching for things in use in the state, that's a wonderful resource. Good. Thank you, Jamie, for helping us remember that. And thank you, Marla, for sharing it. Some people also create and share their resources out just using Canvas. So like you've got your Canvas course created, it's all right there. Some people maybe just export it to the Canvas Commons that you have in your LMS. And I'm not familiar with the Commons in other LMS, but that is one way that people create and share them out. And you can export those, and sometimes you might be able to talk to your instructional designer, for us it's ITLE, or contact your librarian if you do want to share it out and say, hey, I have this course that I've built. Would you like to take it and make it into an OER? And a lot of times, especially if you're at Oklahoma State University, you'll get a hearty yes, and it will happen magically in your world, and that'll be great, and we'll be super excited. There's also folks who create and share out using resources like Google Docs. Some people create and share out using your website, or even just, they've got a PDF and they put it out there. But once you start exploring this, you'll find all sorts of areas that are commons. They have different levels of commoning practices, but it's OER. There's no, and I'm going to get struck by lightning, which might actually happen. I've already been struck by lightning once, but I could get second time because it's 2020. I don't believe there is any one definitive way to create and share out OER. I think it's a practice of commoning, and you interact with it the way that suits your needs and your comfort, right? And you'll find other people, maybe, because it's a spectrum. But as far as I'm concerned, if you're sharing it with someone, you're sharing it. And I think that's amazing and fantastic. But also what I think doesn't really matter. So I have, yes, are there places you have heard about being used to share out OER? Let's take a couple, maybe 33 seconds and see if you found OER someplace that I haven't mentioned. And don't say Pressbooks, because that comes in a minute, Brad.
Well, I can speak for TCC. I know, because we have not had access to Pressbooks previously when we started all of our efforts. And so we put a lot of our open textbooks on our LibGuides platform. And that's just a tool that we had already in our box as librarians. And so that's what we currently use, yes.
Yeah, and that's great, because especially for librarians, and if you aren't a librarian and you haven't learned this trick, if you search what you're looking for and then just tack LibGuide on there, LIBGUIDE, because librarians, we create our pages that all of you go to find things out. We call them LibGuides. And so when I need to know something and I'm wondering if a librarian has done some work on it, I'll Google like music education LibGuide, and my screen will be full. So there's a magic word for you, LibGuide, to find some stuff. So I see some stuff in the chat. Are you grabbing any of it, Jamie? It's hard for me to see it.
Yeah, looks like Google Docs and shared on Blackboard or used on Blackboard. There's a beta version, in-house composition reader created at as a PDF and shared via LMS, and that was at Cameron. And then OpenStax also has come up.
Cool, cool, good. And I think Lumen Learning, I think OSU OKC uses a lot of Lumen Learning stuff. So we see there are lots of places that we can go and look. And I like to think of it as walking around a corner and asking a friend who teaches the same discipline. So like I was a band director, I would maybe, go borrow a clarinet fingering chart from a band director at another school. But at Oklahoma State and now in the state of Oklahoma through OCO, we provide these creation, modification, and sharing opportunities through a publishing platform called Pressbooks. And Pressbooks is built on WordPress. It's not a pressed book. It's an online digital authoring modification platform. And it feels very similar to other rich text authoring platforms. And I did notice that someone got in right away and started messing around in there once they got their sandbox. So that's cool. I'll see if I can figure out who that was, and maybe we'll turn to them as an expert. One of the benefits of Pressbooks is that it exports files in a variety of formats, and it also has a lot of built-in accessibility tools. It doesn't have all of them, but it does things like color and contrast. You get a little nastygram if it's not readable. It says, no, you're breaking the WCAG rules, and so I am thankful for that. Carrie, I just saw it. We have a Google Doc that we posted earlier. That here in a minute, if it hasn't been redropped in the chat, I'll put it in there and we'll get you squared away once we all kind of go our separate ways to explore. And by separate, I don't mean we're going to leave the room. We're all going to keep our little tiles with our names on them here, but maybe you'll open another window to explore. So anyway, one of the benefits, exports files in a variety of formats. It also includes options for the creation of interactive learning experiences. And I want to show you a couple from a book we have in OK State, which is, again, not the best example. It's just the example I have access to. But Jamie will be able to show you even cooler stuff later. She's got some really great books she's been working on. But this is one of the books that we have in ours, and it's open pedagogy. And this is an example of how I was able to embed some interactive teaching and learning experiences in the book itself. So this is Answer Garden, and I've got it. It would have been great if I just dumped this in the chat and everybody could play with it. So, but like I'm gonna type in my answer. What do I think open pedagogy is? And I'm gonna say, I'm just gonna put student voice. And so this is something that ordinarily you could access on the web. It's an activity that's been embedded in here. And so then there it is. So like if I had dropped it, well, I guess I am the boss of this. I can put it in the chat. Let me put in the chat, and you can get in there and kind of tool around in this book and practice with navigating and see what you can discover. You can break it down. See, you can format learning objectives in here. Right here, I've embedded a Flipgrid, and earlier in the chapter, there's instructions for how to create an account and access this particular Flipgrid. QR codes, you can use this QR code to go to the Flipgrid. You can embed videos. Just a second, I have to cough. But really I haven't found anything that I wished I could do that I haven't been able to do in Pressbooks that could speak to a couple different things. It could mean that I don't have a very good imagination, or it could mean that this is a really robust platform. So I guess one of our challenges today would be see if we can dream something that actually can't be done in Pressbooks, and that would be neat. But I was able to embed a Wakelet, so lots of embedding opportunities, and then there is also, I hope I don't lose my place. You can also create interactive learning opportunities. Jamie, I saw you unmute. Did you want to introduce?
Well, I just wanted to make sure that, I think you made a really good point with regard to whatever is possible, we can figure out together collaboratively. But I feel like I'm being billed as a little bit higher expectations for what I can deliver, because the truth is I have not done much with the H5P in Pressbooks because we decided, well, it's kind of a long story. We can talk about that later with our collaborative projects. But as of now, my H5P is simply a big, huge curiosity. And I know there's lots of awesomeness there. And I'm hoping that there are people who will jump on that wagon with us and can make that do some really incredible things.
Yeah, me
in our books.
she's saying she's not an expert, she's underselling herself. But kind of our approach here, and that's why we wanted to have this collaborative experience today, is that no one knows everything, but maybe everyone knows something. And then when we come together, we can, help each other out. When I was a classroom teacher, I very much employed Ask Three, then Ask Me. Then it was partly so, well, there were a lot of very pedagogically sound reasons, but also it was to keep the class moving. But here in this community, I would say, Ask Three, and then ask me or ask Jamie, or ask us first. But it's the strength of the group is where we're really going to discover the capabilities of Pressbooks. So this is an example of what she said, H5P. Instructional designers are going to be familiar with like Articulate Storyline, Captivate. Those of you who are not instructional designers, when you're working in an ebook and you have that spot where it checks for understanding, like it has a quiz, you click true or false, or like the polling feature that we had in that cool escape room this morning. H5P is a platform that's embedded, platform's not the right word, but it's something that is embedded into the Pressbooks capabilities, so you can build those kind of interactive activities. The really great thing is you can also borrow other people, so someone else can create them and you can bring them into your book, and then you just change it to say, whatever the words are you want it to. You can borrow their activity and modify it, because it's OER. The example I'm showing you right now, I'm sorry to leave you just looking at this boring page, but this was a course, a short course I taught this summer, and I used Hypothesis, which is also part of Pressbooks, can be used in Pressbooks to create opportunities for the people who are participating to comment in the text on what was going on. And so we had specific questions, and so you can have your discussion right there in the text using Hypothesis, which comes with Pressbooks. And then I'm trying to get to one of my H5P activities in here, and they aren't brilliant, but they are there. Okay, so here's an example. This is a very lame example, but so here's one where Creative Commons licenses are, and you click it and you check, oh yeah, look. And then since the link is in there, this is a Creative Commons chapter. There are a couple that I'm a little proud of that I created in there. One of them was a blackout. There's a way to create like a blackout poem. And so I did really try to experiment with H5P in that Creative Commons chapter. But the super thing about that, and I'm going to close that window, is that there's a group at BC campus called the H5P Kitchen, and we may have lost a lot of y'all going down this H5P route, but I'll drop the link in the chat here in a bit to the BC campus H5P Kitchen. They have a huge grant up there where they're paying people to create a bunch of H5P activities, and they're releasing them CC BY so that we can then grab them and modify them. And so we don't necessarily have to figure out how to use H5P. We just have to figure out who has figured it out, and then we'll be able to borrow their stuff. So I feel like I should stop for a second and let you ask questions. But yeah, try to be a good teacher. Okay, because the best part is here in a minute. Good. So I want us to take a few minutes and explore some examples, and I am a little behind. I'm looking now for Jamie, did I shared the doc with you, didn't I, that had the examples?
Wait.
Yeah, in a minute, but not yet, we're going to drop a list of examples into the chat. And
Gotcha.
I would like, do you have them?
Yep.
Okay, great. Isn't this nice for modeling flexibility and collaboration? And we're doing it this way on purpose so that you'll see how valuable it is to depend on each other.
Yeah, well, the bottom line is that this is all very messy. I mean, there's no doubt. It's all very messy. It's not wrapped up in a bow and handed to you nicely. That's the cool part about it.
Yeah, thank you. That exactly is. So this is a list of some exemplar Pressbooks, and by exemplar I just mean examples. Some of them I just think are really pretty. Some of them impress me. We tried to get a representative across subject matters. We maybe didn't catch everybody, but what I'd like for you to do is click into that Google Doc, choose one of those books, and go tool around in it for, what did I write down? 127 seconds, and then come back. And I'm going to actually set my timer for 2 minutes. And in 2 minutes, I want you to come back and share what you liked about the resource and what you think could be improved. Go. About 30 more seconds. All right, so I'm going to count down from 5. If I were in front of the room, we were face to face. You can see my hands lifted up. Yeah, and there we are. Now we're home. So what did you find? What did you like? What did you wish you could change? You're welcome to drop it in the chat or unmic and share it out. Unmic, unmute.
Well, I was just going to say, hi, this is Calantha here. I was going to say, I looked at the sight reading one, and I was really impressed by the fact that they were able to incorporate, video plus audio plus images plus text, pretty much any way that you prefer to learn, they have it accessed there, which I thought was really helpful. I think one thing that might have been good, and I think that it was wonderful, but one thing that might have been good is in the introduction, making it a little bit clear that this is not the place you should start if you've never played a guitar before.
Right.
Yeah.
So some pedagogy issues there.
Yeah.
As far as just looking at the resource. Cool, good. Did anyone else notice anything? There's some stuff in the chat, so dive in there and read that. Did anyone else want to share out loud something they found or something they wish could be better?
For the most part, it seems people are liking the layout. And from OCCC mentioned the navigation is a little non-intuitive, and I agree. The first time I opened a Pressbooks, it did take me a minute, a Pressbooks book, it did take me a minute to figure out that you turn the pages essentially in the lower left and lower right-hand corners.
Yeah, and I don't know how that behaves on a Kindle, because it can export files, but I have a Kindle being delivered today, and soon I will find out. But
it turns pages just like a published book.
Okay.
You swipe to turn your pages.
Okay, good. So in the Kindle, it is intuitive.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Just reading on the web. Okay, and that's a really good point. And there's also, I will say, one of the things that happens. I'm looking for one of our specific books. Sometimes they'll run an update or an accessibility update, and then sometimes there's a little hiccup. So like there's a drop down arrow that changed. But within like a day, it was changed back, because it is dynamic and they're constantly trying to improve it without ever taking it offline. Well, let me show you, as we're talking about some of these navigation challenges, let me show you a couple of the things in one of the books that some of our authors created. So this is a technical writing. You see all those windows that I opened, and now I can't find a single one. But as we were creating it, one of the things they talked about was, do our students want to have to scroll right, or do they want to have to not scroll right, but do the students want to have to scroll a lot, or do they want to have to turn pages? And so as they were working through it, they were under the impression that the students would prefer to turn pages. But it turned out after we ran the beta, the students wanted to scroll. They didn't want to turn pages. And so we were able to go back and reformat it based on the student input and make it along the long scroll. So that's one of the really great things about, first of all, using OER on an authoring platform that you have control of to a certain extent, but also Pressbooks in particular. And I'm going to show you while we're in this one, what the organization looks like. So I can see this page in the book because I have admin level access, And those of you that I've gotten set up with an account already, I tried to give you admin access. If I didn't, it was a misclick. But I wanted you in the book that I added you to be able to see this admin and play with it at this level. And Brad has a really cool chart that he'll share out probably later that details more about what access you have at what level. But so as you can see, you organize, the way Pressbooks thinks of it is they think in parts, and within the parts, you have chapters. And so you add your part. If I were going to click organize, is that where I am? Come on, baby. This is what the organization page kind of looks like. I can decide where I want to export it. Do I want it to show in the web version? Do I want it to be exported? Do I want the title to show? So this is just a little bit of what's there. And then once you get into the book that I added you all to, feel free. It's not a fancy book. It's just for us to play. And so I think we'll just make a community agreement here that we won't worry about whether or not we break it. And so you can click on these and play with all these little tabs over here in that book. And now I've gotten off my script and probably also behind on time.
You're okay. Just a couple minutes.
Okay. While we are here together though, what do you wish you could do? If you were going to create something, what would you dream? What do you wish you could just change or customize easily? And something very weird just happened. So, but you can go ahead and answer that question while I figure out what's happening. What do you dream?
Marla just posted in the chat, drag and drop activities, rearranging parts of a citation. That'd be helpful.
Oh,
In infolit setting.
oh yeah, that would be cool.
Comp.
Anything else? I'm sure there's lots of stuff being tossed into the chat, and we are eager to get our hands on this book. So what I'd like for you to do is give it a go, and I'm going to do a quick screen. Oh, you know what? Before we go completely, I'm going to show you. I'm going to drop another book in the chat so that if you happen to not have gotten with me and we don't have a sandbox set up for you yet, and I will do it as soon as I can. This is another book that is really fun. This Professor Penelope Pincher and the Search for Affordable Content. The content in the book is kind of neat, but it's a really great example of how you can use the navigation to create personalized pathways to a degree personalized. There's no AI involved. It's just links and stuff. So if you don't yet have an account and you can't get in there and play, explore that book a little bit. But as we go into the Pressbooks book that we are going to be working in together, which is this OER, Oklahoma OER Summit Fall 2020. What did I say? I'll show you a little about book organization, then let you give it a go. Let me share my screen again. And Jamie, you jump in anytime. So this is the book that I added you all to. So when you log into it, I think you'll click admin. I don't know exactly what yours will say. Click organize over here. And what I would challenge you to do is try creating a part. So I would add a part and I would name it Kathy or whatever, and I would save it. And then within your part, I would challenge you to add 3 chapters. And so you'll notice when I click add a chapter, I have a chance over here on the right part of the screen to say where I want it to be. I want it to go into the very oddly spelled Kathy. And then you can play a little bit down here with what chapter type it means. But I would challenge you to create 3 of those chapters. And the reason I want you to create 3 of them is so that you can do it wrong once and fix it, so that you can probably do it right a 3rd time, maybe have to fix it, definitely do it right. Oh, the 2nd time is the maybe, the 3rd time is when you'll for sure get it right. And then once you've created 3 of those chapters, oh, and I didn't tile that, so I don't know it will save. And I'm gonna make sure this goes into my weirdo thing. I would encourage you to add text to it. And I would encourage you to embed some media. And then I would also encourage you to upload some images. And so I think maybe Jamie, if she'd be willing to walk us through each of those steps, we can do them right here on the screen. But also those of you who want to take off and run and start playing, go right ahead. What we're going to do is just do a walkthrough of how to kind of do those basic things I just talked about. So you can go try it on your own, and we'll all be right here in the same book But we can also, holler out if you have the question. Someone else probably has the same question, dump stuff in the chat. And I think, and I didn't talk about this ahead of time with Jamie, so my apologies. If I can turn this part over to you, Jamie,
Mhm.
I want to show them some of these authoring things, and then I'll watch the chat. Does that sound okay?
Yeah, that's just fine. Sure.
And I have this scheduled to about 1:40. And if you are curious, you kept hearing us say this H5P, holler at us and we'll show you some more of that. I'll show you a link to the BC Campus Kitchen. That's kind of a whole nother can of worms. So, okay, Jamie, it's all yours. And do you want me to stop share so you can take it over? Do you have the book now?
I think I just stole it from you. Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Kathy, could you also drop the link so that they can sign into the sandbox? We have a couple of people asking for that in the chat.
Yes, I will. And I'll start doing a better job of muting when I cough also. Okay, so people that need the sandbox.
Okay, so let's see. At this point, everybody should be seeing my screen, and I'm like waving my mouse all around over Kathy's Pressbooks view. Can somebody give me a yes or no on that? Because I can't see you anymore. Okay, thank you. Okay, so I will be honest with you and tell you my first experience with Pressbooks that was successful was a full clone. And so this addresses Alicia's question from a little while ago on the chat. Can I take a Pressbooks and rearrange it and modify it? And that's why what I see as one of the biggest value makers as far as Pressbooks goes, because once you have a book in your catalog or on your shelf, you get this option under My Books to clone a book. And at that point, any book that lives on the Pressbooks network, you just drop their URL into the form when you're going to clone a book, and then you give it your own title, and you have to give it its own address. Remember, these are WordPress sites. These are little individual websites almost that live on the WordPress platform. And so it has to have a unique URL. And something that's important to know is once you set the URL, that's it for your catalog, your network. You can't reassign that URL later. Now, of course, you can completely dismantle the book and start over on that URL piece of real estate, but you can't. So the title of the book can be changed later, but the URL can't. And I think that's important to mention at the beginning when people are first getting started. But in any case, you can see here some books that I have brought in. Where is it? Philosophical Thought. I actually pulled that in and rearranged somebody else's philosophy textbook with a philosophy professor at TCC. In any case, so cloning is easier because it almost gives you something to start with, but you can author from scratch, which is what I'm doing with the OCO OER book. And so really, it's just a matter of you click on what you want to add to. It opens up a palette, and it's pretty self-explanatory there. This is where you can write your intro. It's got a lot of the same features as Word or other authoring software, as she talked about. Headings. One thing I learned in an advanced workshop a couple weeks ago, keep your headings consistent throughout your book. So if you're not ever going to have heading ones, then just make that decision from the beginning. And that all has to do with accessibility issues. That's just good accessibility practice anyway. Once you have, authored what you want and you've added in any of your media, I noticed there is no H5P on this platform yet, and that's an admin deal. So we're not seeing the H5P plugin yet. That would appear here next to the Add Media button.
Okay.
And then,
so I need to enable that.
Okay, well, sure, Kathy. And I don't necessarily know that has to be done just now. I mean, it's, I just want them to know that that's where they would find it if it was there. Once you have authored what you want, this is down here is where you start putting in your licenses. It has all of the different CC licenses that Jennifer talked to us about this morning. That's where you add that. If you want that to be separate from the overall license of the book. And that's where the whole idea of remixing comes in, and you might actually include something from your book that maybe has a CC by NC on it, but there was no share alike provision. And so you pull it in, and that chapter essentially holds its own license, and that will show up at the bottom of every front-facing book. For now, I think the only other thing that I would want to tell you is once you've written what you want to write for your introduction, you simply save it, and then it will allow you to very quickly preview what you've done. Of course, I haven't done anything. Let me go ahead and add. Oh, Kathy just added the I think there's another step there, Kathy, and that's actually, I don't want to confuse everybody else. This is why this morning I really wasn't able to pull in any H5P examples, Brad, because that's still not triggered in the OCO platform either. So, but again,
apologies for that. And I actually see that this is OSU's platform, so that's why I didn't change on there. Kathy will have to be the one to take care of that.
Right, yeah, let's do clarify this, that the clumsy things you're seeing on here are OSU. They're me, they're not OCO. And I think you have to create it, Jamie, in the book or import it from someplace else. But she's exactly right that's where it would be. But since we haven't added any yet, they're not there. That didn't make any sense.
Well, there is a way to, but this is all back-end stuff. There is a way to connect your platform to the H5P repository and like have that added seamlessly. But again, that's admin level stuff that we don't need to worry about for this. Sorry. So as Kathy said, we could add media. It uploads pretty, the same way a lot of platforms online do. You can add your own to the media library once they're in there. That's pretty self-explanatory, so I'm not sure that I want to waste your time with that. Let's see, Kathy, what else would you want me to? Oh, this is kind of neat. These different, the sort of standard things that you would see in a textbook, like key takeaways area, it formats all of that for you. Now the coloring here is associated with the theme that we've chosen. So in addition to adding your introduction, your appendix, your each of your individual chapters, you can also add in all of these neat little graphics. The other wonderful thing, and this is going back to when Kathy had us explore for 120 seconds, I looked in a philosophy book because I wanted to see if they had some cool interactivity features. And my disappointment with that book was that it's a lot of text. But one thing that's awesome in there that they use is the automatic footnote. You can insert footnotes directly into the text, so you can play with that a little bit too. I think that's a really good feature that our traditional textbooks would have, and we'd be used to them having that. And that's harder to do yourself when you're then going to be turning around and exporting a variety of different formats. Let's see, what else would I want you to know? Let me show you what that looks like actually in the book. Once I've saved that, and then we preview it. Hopefully those of you who have an account already are in there digging around, because the best way to learn Pressbooks is just to get in there and use it. I can't emphasize that enough.
Yeah, it looks like there are. It looks like there really are. And I think what you're doing is helpful. Like if you just want to create a story and let people watch how you do it, some of the answers might be resolved as you go.
It looks like people have started to add things. This is only a test. Awesome. Let's see. I'm going to go ahead, and up here at the top is where I can then go ahead and take a look at the public view of my book. And it looks like in chapter 1, somebody added something. Notice down here in the lower left is where the license, and it looks like it defaults because Kathy named it. Kathy, I think because you initiated this book, you're listed as the author. Let's look at Lynn's chapter. Lynn did not add anything new to her license, and so it defaults to the overall or whole book license.
You might want to show maybe go to the beginning, Jamie, and you should be able to change the licensing, unless I didn't make you an administrator. But you can you might be able to do that and get
That's
that does look
yeah, that's going to be under book info. That's where you add your title. Here is where you can add all the different contributors that have contributed to your book. So, and what I'm hoping at the end of today is that we can have a conversation about collaborating on this OER textbook for OCO for the state. And ideally, we would have a new contributor added once. So I'm just. Jamie Holmes.
Yeah, and for those of you who feel like you're lost, that you're doing it exactly right. Very good. Pick one thing maybe and try to figure it out, or just even watch Jamie fly through it all. But this is a lot, and even if you just come away with it, we're trying to show you everything because we want you to fall in love with it. But sometimes as a result, it's hard to understand anything. So forgive us for that approach.
Here is the this is where your themes come in, and it's kind of neat because you can see what you like, but then you also can go in and get some information about it, and it tells you where the theme came from and what. Well, this is not a good example, but it'll tell you what it's good for, like what they recommend. This is what I use for the philosophy book, and this is good for academic nonfiction textbook type materials. When your book is ready, and I know we're not there yet because I haven't shown you everything I wanted to show you. I'm kind of just going down the menu, Kathy. I have to be a little bit more systemic about it. They're systematic. When you get to your export options, when your book is ready, this is what Kathy was talking about earlier with all the different output formats. One concern that I've heard is what happens if we don't continue our Pressbooks subscription. Everything that you create in Pressbooks can be exported to live on other WordPress platforms. This common cartridge, I haven't experimented with that a whole lot, but basically it preserves the work that you've done. Even if the platform or your access to it goes away, you still can very easily maintain content that is then easily editable and manipulatable. It's a terrible word for future uses. I don't want to get into all of that. Let me go back into organize. Is there something that you would want to be able to do that you would want me to show you? Oh, somebody asked about rearranging chapters. The rearranging chapters is clunkier than I would like it to be, and it's these move up, move down buttons. So if I let's say I've cloned a book, I brought it in, it's now my book with my own unique URL, and it lives on my platform or in my library, if you will. And I decide that I want to put this experimental chapter before chapter 1. It's a little bit clunky, but you just have to keep moving. And I have a feeling that is to avoid like mishaps with dragging and dropping, simply because it is moving so much content. At first that irritated me, but I got used to it. One of the things that I like about Pressbooks is you can do an adaptive release. So let's say you have the whole book created, or maybe you don't, and you only want people to see or have access to one chapter at a time. You control exactly what parts of the book, and that's why Kathy emphasized at the beginning that parts are a significant building block, if you will, of these books. So you can decide that you're only going to show one part, or you only want to show one chapter at a time as you're exporting, and that's what all of these little clicks are, or all these little check boxes are. You may only want to show it in the web version because it's not quite done yet, so you don't want to show it in your PDF export, because then people will have a very early version of the book and they've already maybe printed it, or they've already saved it in their LMS, and it's not quite ready yet. The web version is the only version that is on the fly. Changes reflect on the fly. all the other exports you have to actually come back to the export area and then re-export the book. And I won't go into detail about all of that, what's kept and what's ditched. And I am past time, Kathy, so.
Oh gosh, we are, but can we show them real quickly? Go to one of the pages. Maybe go to one of your books that has stuff in it.
Oh, okay.
Heather's. Okay, so one of the questions here was, can you Frankenstein build a new book from multiple Pressbook books? And so yeah, so you can, as Jamie said, you can clone them. But another way to do it is just open up any page and let's show them the 2 different menus. Not menus, I'm not using any of the right words.
That's okay. And I don't want to mess with Heather's book because it is live right now.
Okay.
So I'm going to go, I think I'm going to go here.
I just want to show them the visual.
Oh, geez.
You have a visual editor and a rich text editor, and I may be saying those incorrectly. I guess I could just open up a book here.
No, it's okay. I'll go to Heather's and I'll just be careful to not.
We're just going to show them those 2 tabs. And this is still answering the Frankenstein book. So you see you have the visual editor, which looks familiar, right? That's kind of rich text editor that we're familiar with. But then if you hit on the text, that gives you the code. And so when I am Frankensteining books together, I would, for instance, just go to this page, I click into it, I'd hit Control All, I'd hit copy, and then I would go to my book and I would paste it into the text editor on my book, and then clean up the code if I needed to. But so that's one way you can clone things, but that's another way to just do a direct grab. So, okay, that does run us up against time. I don't know if we didn't cover enough or if we covered too much. It's like you came and said, we're a little thirsty, and we opened up the fire hydrant. And I wish I could figure out a way to do this that wasn't that. But we've also talked about when. So we have, ironically, 1 minute to cover when would you do this. And Marla, I think, has done a great job at her institution of working with faculty to help them see it in small steps and think of just piloting a practice or piloting a chapter. And so kind of think about when in your world you have some space or some time. You know, maybe you have an afternoon. What would you like to do? I'd like to try one activity and just kind of experiment with finding one open activity that you can then modify for your own practice. A lot of professional organizations also have grant cycles. OU has a rolling grant cycle. Those of you with OU, Oklahoma State, we're not rolling yet. We're still kind of luck of the draw, but keep an eye out because we will have, I think there's 2 or 3 institutions in the state that will have some kind of smaller grant availability next year. And sometimes that's what helps you dictate when you do it. So we're up to time. Question? Okay, email me with questions, email Jamie with questions, and we'll steer you the right direction. I do have to close these sandboxes at noon. So if you have created something amazing, shoot me a quick text and I'll save your work someplace so that you still have it, you still have access.
Brad, there are a few questions in the chat that relate more to the overall access to Pressbooks. And so like RSU and NSU, they're asking, and I think it's important, we have a Pressbooks sort of steering committee right now, right? How is the rest of that going to be accessible or opened up to member institution folks?
Jamie, thank you for asking that question. I just dropped a link in the chat to the OCO website. So if you visit ocolearnok.org and navigate towards the bottom of that page, you will see all of the institution logos of the state system institutions that are members of OCO. So by default, all of those institutions would eventually have a pathway to be able to access Pressbooks. As I mentioned earlier, we are limited by the OCO subscription of Pressbooks to 30 projects. We have a committee of individuals that are mostly composed of OER librarians and instructional designers across our campuses that are getting together and working on how we can approach faculty groups to collaborate and support them on these kinds of projects. So in the case of this event, for example, we reached out to such groups as hire, for example, to ask them to come together and have these conversations in advance of being given a potential opportunity if they choose to want to develop a text here. Some other areas that we've wanted to research are such courses that are very high impact and high enrollment, such as freshman English composition classes. So if you have any interest as a faculty member here or department lead of being a part of some of these collaborations, I would encourage you to reach out to me individually, and I can help you get in those pipelines and find the resources that are available on your campus. Because one of the things that I really do want to address, especially out of some of the comments in the chat, is that you are not alone in this process. There are individuals across your campuses who are waiting and chomping at the bits to want to help you develop these kinds of projects, to help you resolve and figure out how to do things with HTML, which can really help you even working through your learning management system. So again, first step I would say is try to make those individual contacts within your library. Find out who your OER experts are on your campus, and then contact me whenever you're ready potentially to collaborate with other faculty at the state level on some of these kinds of projects. Jamie, does that answer your question fully?
Yes, I think so.
Great.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Kathy and Jamie, is there anything else that we need to cover before we move on to our mindfulness activity?
No, I feel like we were disrespectful friends of your time and energy by throwing so much at you. And I apologize if it was overwhelming, but please do email us and we can get on Zoom and answer very specific, slow, step-by-step questions.
No, and I think, Kathy, that's indicative of the kinds of dynamics that faculty and staff working on these projects will encounter, and use that as your resource. Use the people that know more about this technological expertise than you do as your ally to be able to figure out how to work with these types of systems. Again, I promise you that there are individuals on your campus that are assigned to do this as part of their job and very eager to do so, even out of an interest of personal research. So thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Jamie, very much for sharing that information with us. And I can't wait to hopefully see a lot of the faculty participating on this call today in some of our project groups as we begin moving forward.